Welcome to the Mechanics of Breakthrough. And thank you so much, Rae Irelan, for inviting me to share this with the Goddess Fest community, because this really is about creating the life that you want, right? And why is it that sometimes, even when you're super capable, even when you've got all the potential in the world, even when you know what you're born to do and who you're here born to be and what's possible for you in this world, why is it that sometimes it feels like there's some invisible force field that's just standing right in between you and what you want, or what you want is just right around the corner? And it's extremely frustrating, especially when you are someone who is so capable, who is somebody who, you say you'll do it and you go for it. You're not just someone who sits around and it's not just wishful thinking. Like, you actually are one of the bold ones who goes for it. And so it can be so excruciatingly frustrating, I know, because I am this way too. And so we're going to talk about exactly why is that invisible force field there. We're going to talk about where you are in your breakthrough process. And we're going to talk about exactly what's required to step into the new reality you desire. So before I go any farther, I'll introduce myself. My name is Anne Perry, and I'm the founder of Else Society, like this, Else, E-L-S-E, Else Society. And, really what this is all about is creating the life that you desire intentionally and stepping out of the hamster wheel existence of stress, struggle, sacrifice, repeat, overwork yourself, run yourself into the ground, give away your best life force energy to things that don't really matter, so that you can actually claim the life that you are meant for. And so this conversation about breakthrough is a really big deal. And we're not going to be talking about diving into your deep subconscious beliefs and, digging all this stuff up that you've probably dug up a million times before and swirling it around and psychoanalyzing yourself and coming up with reasons why you suck. We're definitely not doing that. We're going to really talk about the mechanics of how this all works. So breaking through into new realities is a privilege of being a human creator, right? Like, that's kind of what we get to do. We get to come here, we get to have these limitations of sort of what the world thinks is possible. We get to have our own, baggage that we get to be born into in our families or in our communities. We get to have these limited thoughts that hold us back. And we have the privilege of being able to step through those and intentionally create a life that we are just on fire for. And that really is a privilege. It can feel like a bad thing when we are, feeling like we're held back from what we really want, but it really is a beautiful privilege. And I always use this picture of the birds because it reminds me of my own, I can't say my first breakthrough, but one really big turning point in my life. And this was over a dozen years ago. I was at the time working like 3 jobs, trying to get my own business off the ground, which was an energy healing practice at the time. And it just was, my life was so full of struggle. I was constantly working. I was barely, I was making daily decisions between gas to put in the car and groceries. And I was falling behind on my bills and falling behind on my mortgage. It was one of those spots in my life that was just not good. Everything felt so hard. And I remember this particular day when I was walking down the street and I was counting my change to see if I had enough money for a cup of coffee. I was going to the coffee shop, which was around the corner. And my cell phone started ringing in my purse. And I knew already who it was. It was the bill collectors, because they called every day at 8 a.m. on the dot. And I was just like, oh my God, what the hell? Like, something's got to give here. And I just remember getting really, really present. And it was one of these spring days in Denver where the sun was out and I could feel the warmth of the sun on my face. And I could feel my feet hit the pavement as I took each step. I remember seeing somebody across the street, this guy. I was like, that's a cute guy. And I thought, okay, I can feel the sun on my face. I can think that guy's cute. I can feel my feet. I'm alive. I'm here. But like, what is this struggle about? And I remember looking up in the sky, and the sky looked just like this, just super vivid and blue. And these birds flew overhead. And I remember thinking, God, they're so free. And I felt envy, to be honest. Like the feeling was envy. Like, why can't life be that simple? Why can't life be what it is for the birds? Like, you just wake up, you just exist. You trust the universe to deliver a worm when you're hungry. Ride the breeze. There's like, they don't have this sort of human invented struggle. And so then I remember thinking like, well, what if a lot of this struggle that I'm experiencing is self-invented? Like, what if I'm the one who's making this way more difficult than it has to be? And I can't say I just, had all the answers in that moment, but it was a huge turning point, because it was kind of like, when you basically get to the point of, like kind of an I don't give a fuck moment. I don't know what else to call it. It was like, I don't give a fuck. It was like, something's got to give. And like, this is just bullshit. Like, so from that place of I don't give a fuck or bullshit, it's almost like the stranglehold that I had on life, I just let go. And from that place, I saw that, if this is all made up anyway, maybe I'm just going to make up a story that I actually want to be experiencing. What if I could wipe the slate clean and just start fresh and just start existing from that place of the freedom of a bird, and, design my life around what I really care about. And so, the long story short is that is how I've lived my life ever since then. This is me. This is my dog, Louie. And, there's been breakthrough after breakthrough. And that was one of those breakthrough moments, which was actually a more internal breakthrough. But, dreams that I had at the time that I never thought would be possible for me are just my waking reality now. They're my new normal. I always thought it would be so amazing to travel around the world. I didn't think that was something that was possible for me because I was so strapped by debt and this kind of thing. And I always just thought that was for other people, but not for me. But now that's what I do. I've had this work from anywhere lifestyle for, I don't know, almost a decade now. And, have lived in multiple countries, run my business from islands off the coast of Panama, lived in Portugal. I've traveled around the United States in an RV for a year and a half. Just like things that I always thought would be these adventures of a lifetime are just how I live my life. And, my career is completely self-invented. Like what I'm doing right now, just made it up. Else society, there was no job description in Craigslist for that, right? Like, create a society where people intentionally design their lives together and step out of the hamster wheel and do things differently, even though society says they can't. There was definitely no job description in Craigslist for that. I just made it up, right? But now it exists. And now people are doing that. So, well, they could do it anyway, right? It's just another vehicle. So what I want to talk about is how this works. So first of all, you have probably heard before this saying, everything you want exists right outside your comfort zone. Or, there's your life exists in your comfort zone. You have to get out of your comfort zone to have the life you want. Or like you can see right here, it's put like this. Here's your puny, lame ass comfort zone. And here is unicorns, fun, magic, rainbows and shit. Like everything you want is on the outside of your comfort zone. Well, there is some truth in this for sure, right? But it's a little overly simplified. And so I'm going to talk about that there are actually 4 zones that are what I call the zones of expansion. We're going to talk about what those are so you can see like very distinctly, how do you do that? Like, okay, how do I move out of my comfort zone? Because I know for myself, there have been plenty of times when I've been completely uncomfortable, but that doesn't mean I've got, unicorns and rainbows and magic and all this stuff going on. In fact, the story I just told you about when I was completely broke and working my ass off and like, why is life not working? That was pretty damn uncomfortable. And that didn't mean that I had the life that I wanted, right? It was familiar, but it wasn't the life I wanted. So there are actually 4 zones. And like I said, these are called the zones of expansion. So you can think about this big circle right here as your current reality, okay? This is your current reality. And there is a new reality that you're desiring, a new level of growth, a new level of abundance or wealth or influence or self-expression in your career or adventure in your life, whatever that looks like to you, it's on the other side of your where'd this little thing go? It's around the other side of, it's on the other side of your current reality. Okay. And there are 4 zones of expansion in your current reality. And these are them. Bing, 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 bing. Okay. So we're going to talk about them step by step. So here's the first one, your comfort zone. So there is such a thing as your comfort zone, right? But it doesn't have to be a bad thing. We don't have to call it your puny, lame ass comfort zone, because I don't know about you, but I enjoy being comfortable. And when you're in your comfort zone, basically there can be a range of feelings. This can be anywhere from sort of ho hum, la-di-da, another day in the life, to like, oh my God, this is exhilarating. You can be exhilarated in your comfort zone, because the distinction is what we want to feel comfortable and we want to feel fully alive, right? It's not like being in your comfort zone is just like means that you've resigned to some horrible life. It's like, it's okay to be comfortable, and you can feel fully alive and in flow and in appreciating the experiences in your life, and experiencing success and abundance and wealth and joy and contribution and impact and soul consciousness and spiritual expansion. Like all of that can happen in your comfort zone. It means it's in your reality where it feels comfortable. That's all it means. And so what it feels like to be in your comfort zone, you can take notes, by the way, if you want. What it feels like to be in your comfort zone is it feels familiar. It feels reliable. It feels steady. It feels predictable, like we know what to expect and how things are going to be. There's a level of comprehension in your comfort zone. It's like, think about when you first learned to drive. At first, you have to be so hypervigilant, conscious of every single thing. Like, okay, look in the rearview mirror, look in the side mirror, turn on my blinker. Is my foot pushing on the gas too hard, or am I getting it right? All of those things that you had to think about, those are now in your comfort zone. It's just familiar. You've comprehended it. You've mastered it. So mastery is actually an experience that's in the comfort zone. Confidence. It's a place of habit where you're just, doing what you do. It can be nurturing to be living in your comfort zone. That's why it's called a comfort zone, right? It's comforting. And it can also feel like a plateau. Like it might be like, okay, I don't feel like I'm necessarily growing and expanding. Kind of hit a plateau, but that doesn't, again, have to be a bad thing. It's like when you think about taking a hike and you pause every once in a while to take in the view and look around. That is kind of that plateau comfort zone feeling. It can feel like ease because you're just kind of rolling with it, right? Flow. And it can even feel like magic, because it's this place where especially when it's a new comfort zone to you, like you've newly gained a new skill or a new like way of being, and it's just like, oh, like things are clicking in, and magic is taking place, and you're enjoying that and you're appreciating it. You're loving how that feels, and it still feels comfortable, right? It's in your comfort zone. So that's why this image here is a picture of a peaceful meadow. There's nothing wrong with frolicking around in the meadow and feeling good and comfortable. So what happens though is that at some point your comfort zone starts to feel dull. Maybe that feeling of aliveness and newness and freshness and just like really peace and enjoying this landscape that you're in starts to feel dull, because we naturally desire a new and expanded and heightened experience. We're creatures of expansion. It's how we're wired. And that's part of the magic too. So you can think about an experience in your life that was new and exciting, that that at one time it used to be new and exciting, and now it's kind of like, yeah, like not a big deal. It doesn't like light you up every day. So maybe when you first bought your house, or you first, found this apartment that you love, it was so exciting, and you're decorating, and you're just, every day you come home and you're just like, oh, I love this place. And then at some point it's just like you walk in the door, throw your keys on the, counter and go grab a snack. And it's again, nothing's wrong. It's just not that new excitingness. Or with your spouse, you were madly head over heels in love. You could barely like breathe or sleep, or, and then it's like, yes, you still love this person, but your heart has calmed down a little bit. You're not about to like burst out of your chest, like freaking out over this new infatuation. So what happens is that when your comfort zone starts to feel dull And I'm not saying your home environment or your spouse has to be dull. Those are just examples of how we get, acclimated to something. But when you're, let's say in your career or something like that, or in your sort of like aliveness in life, your sense of adventure, when things start to feel dull, you're naturally being called to expand. And so what happens is you move into the next zone. And it looks like this. This is the dissatisfaction zone. And this is where you realize just that your current comfort zone is no longer working for you. It's like, again, nothing's wrong, but you're wanting to expand into something else. You're outgrowing it. So it's kind of like a healthy dissatisfaction. Like there's got to be more than this, you know? It's like if you started your career and you've been doing the same thing for, a number of years, at some point it's like, I just feel like there's something more. And so what it can feel like in your comfort zone, in your dissatisfaction zone, what it can feel like is it can feel like boredom. It could feel even like a funk, so it can range. So it could just be like, no, I'm just kind of bored. I would just feel a little stagnant. Or it can feel really like, I'm just stuck in a funk. You could feel irritable. You could feel antsy. You could even feel depressed. So it's like this landscape that you see right here, this desertous landscape. It's like there's nothing really growing there. It's more of like, it feels like a death zone than a growth zone, right? This is another analogy I like to use for the ladies is it's like creation PMS, which means creation pre-manifestation syndrome. How do you like that? But it's like that feeling before you are creating something new where it just feels like, And here's the thing, some people stay in here forever. You probably know someone like that. It's like their life doesn't feel good. They feel like they're in a funk. They don't, they're not enjoying anything, but they do absolutely nothing about it. I know this person who would just always say like, well, life sucks, then you die. And I'm like, wow, really? That's a bummer. But what's going on is that person, they're living in their dissatisfaction zone, and they just are not choosing to move through it. So when you're somebody who, a goddess fest person, or we call them, else people, when you're an else person at heart, when you're somebody who is just sort of wired for expansion, sometimes it can be like, why, when you're in the dissatisfaction zone, it can feel like, why can't I just be satisfied with what everyone else is satisfied with? Like, why can't I just feel okay waking up and like getting in the commuter traffic and going to this job that just is kind of sucks, and then coming home and doing the same thing over and over again, rinse and repeat. Like so many people just do that and they're fine with it. Why can't I be fine with that? And it's because you are wired to grow. You're wired to expand. All of us are, right? Like we're either growing or we're dying. You've probably heard that phase. But there's a choice, right? There's a choice to expand and grow, or there's a choice to just stay in this dissatisfaction zone, walking around this like desertous landscape, maybe find a little quicksand to sink into, and resigning to that's life, right? So the good news is that the dissatisfaction zone, like being dissatisfied, I said earlier, healthy dissatisfaction, a sense of a healthy dissatisfaction is actually a catalyst for expansion. And we've talked about expansions in our nature. So you can embrace your dissatisfaction. You can be like, okay, I'm feeling dissatisfied with something. It's really an invitation into something more. It's like I said, again, creation PMS, pre-manifestation syndrome. Like there's something that is calling you to grow into it. So it can be good news. And what you get called into is the zone that's next. This is the anticipation zone. Now, the anticipation zone is, you've probably heard before the saying that excitement and fear are the opposite sides of the same coin, right? So anticipation contains both the energy of excitement and fear, but it's not always quite so potent. So the experience of being your anticipation zone can really be kind of like making plans. This is the place where you are dreaming and scheming, and it can be exciting. Sometimes you get those butterflies in your stomach, like you've got this new vision and it's just like, it's super exciting. Maybe it just like you just kind of like, it tickles you, right? And you may not be jumping off the wall ecstatic because this new reality that you're dreaming and scheming up, it's still sort of, exists down the road a bit, but so it can be anywhere from just like starting to think about it to being like really in the details of how is this going to work and what's it going to look like and how am I going to do it and like that. So it's like being on the inner edge of your anticipation zone, right when you step into it. Being on the inner edge feels like confident and optimistic excitement, like that West Side Story song where he's like, something's coming, something good. I don't know what it is, but it's going to be great. I totally botched it, but do you guys know that song? It's like that, like, oh, something's around the corner. It's exciting. I mean, especially it feels really good once you've gotten out of the desert, right? It's like, you can either stay in that desert, stay in that dissatisfaction, or you can be like, yes, there's something new. And that feels so good. What happens is, as you step closer and closer to the edge of your anticipation zone, the outer edge, right, to move into the next zone, which is coming next, what happens is it's more like you're squirming in your seat, because as inspiring as your new reality is that you are, anticipating, you really have no idea what it's like over there. And so it's kind of like fear kicks in, right? So it moves from sort of excited anticipation to fearful, holy crap, I'm gonna crap my pants here. It's like the first day you get dropped off for kindergarten, maybe. You're so excited about it all summer. It's easy to be excited about school all summer. You're like, I've picked out my lunchbox, I have my special pencils, and my teacher's name is Miss Mary, and it's going to be so fun. And then there's the first day of school, and you get in the car and your mom drops you off, and then you see your mom's car drive away, and then it's like, holy crap, like gulp. So this is the biggest choice point for us as creators, human creators in our own lives. And it makes all the difference between those who break through to a new reality and those who don't. It's the difference between a person who says they will and does, and one who just keeps saying they will. Because here is like the truth. There is a trap here in the anticipation zone. It's a very alluring trap. You may recognize this. I know I recognize this in my own life. It feels really good at the inner edge of your anticipation zone, that like something's coming feeling, right? It feels good there. It can be really, really, really uncomfortable at the outer edge of your anticipation zone when you're about to move through. So the trap is getting caught in a whirlpool of vacillating between your dissatisfaction zone and your anticipation zone forever. Like you're in the desert, you're in a rut, you're feeling like, ugh, like there's got to be something else. Then you sneak into the anticipation zone. You let yourself be pulled there. Like, yes, there's something else for me. There's this new reality. And then it's like, when it starts getting really uncomfortable because it starts to become time to, take some scary actions to make it happen, we can sink back. And then it's kind of like this yo-yo of feeling dissatisfied and in a rut, and excited anticipation. Do you recognize that at all? And so what happens is what I call mind trickery. So you could call it your ego mind, you could call it whatever you want. It's that part of you that wants you to stay safe. And so we can't blame it because, thank you, ego mind, for wanting me to stay safe. But, meanwhile, I'm compromising my happiness. So we're going to have to deal with that. But here's what it looks like. Everyone has their own flavor of mind trickery. And by the way, that's why this looks like the anticipation zone looks like a chalkboard with a whole bunch of, scientific formulas. And it's sort of like, it's almost a mind fuck, right? So it can feel like confusion. Being in the anticipation zone, it can feel like, oh, I don't know what I want. Like I'm confused. It can feel like perfection. being that engineer that won't won't hand the product over to production, like being perfectionist about it, going back and having to tweak and tweak and tweak until it's ready, but then nope, it's not ready, got to go back and tweak and tweak and tweak. It can be, over preparation, same kind of thing. It can be scatteredness, like my thoughts all of a sudden, you just can't think straight anymore. Like your focus is everywhere, almost a little, like flittering around, not on track. It can feel like paralysis, just feeling, doing nothing. But the trick is like in the anticipation zone, and when you're kind of caught in this mind trickery whirlpool, it often feels like you're doing something even when you're not, right? It can even be, show up in ways like tiredness, like just being exhaustedly tired, or even sickness. It can be like a loss of motivation. It can feel like idea orgasms. Do you know what I'm talking about? Idea orgasm, when you're just addicted to information and inspiration, and you can feel like so much is happening because it's like, feels good to be inspired. It feels good to get new information and like, woo, yeah. But are you actually doing it, right? So that's a form of mind trickery. It can be like distraction. It can be like changing your mind at the last minute. Like this thing is ready to go, whatever it is that you're creating in your life, it's ready to go. And then you just change your mind at the last minute. Like, nope, it doesn't feel right anymore. Not doing it. Or shiny object syndrome, we're just kind of bouncing around from one shiny object to the next. And that starts to happen when things become really real, right? That's when something shiny catches your attention. It can also look like rationalizing why you're actually satisfied with what you already have. So that's a little bit of that sinking back into the dissatisfaction zone, but like telling yourself you're actually cool with it. Like, actually, I really like this rut that I'm in, and it's not a rut after all. It's fine. So it can feel like being stuck or blocked, and it can feel like analyzing your blocks, right? Like that's why I said at the beginning of this conversation, we're not going to be analyzing your blocks. Like we're not going to be like, let's dig up all this stuff and look at why you're stuck. We're not, that's not what it is. That's actually can sometimes be something that keeps you more stuck. So when you find yourself in mind trickery, what's really going on is avoidance of the next zone, which is the courage zone. It's actually what it is. All that mind trickery, whether it looks like confusion or tiredness or changing your mind or, shiny objects or idea orgasms, whatever your favorite flavor of mind trickery is, often like what that actually is it's the fear of fear. I often say that to be an intentional creative your life, the only fear you need to get over is the fear of fear. Because you've heard feel the fear and do it anyway kind of thing. Totally. So it's like the only fear to really intentionally release from your life is the fear of fear, because it's necessary in order to break through. So your decision here is to allow the experience of fear or not, to lean into your fear or to shy away from it. And here's the irony, is that it takes a lot of energy to be in the anticipation zone. It actually takes more energy to be in the anticipation zone, where you're stewing about it, you're planning it, you're thinking about it, you're tweaking it. It takes more energy to do all that than it does to just do it. But to just do it is freaking scary. That's why it's called the courage zone. So I remember when I was 5 years old, I kind of, shared with you the little analogy of being a 5-year-old being dropped off at kindergarten. I had an experience where I got dropped off at a birthday party. I was 5 years old, and my friend Robert was having this birthday party, and I was so excited about it. I was talking about it for weeks. I was like really excited about the present I got him. I had my dress all picked out and laid out for like a week. And my mom walked me over to his house. And mind you, this house was like 2 doors down. And actually, like our backyards touched. They were like diagonal backyards. Anyway, so he lived a couple of houses over. But all of a sudden, and I used to play there all the time, but all of a sudden this one was different. Like I walk in and I see all these kids that I don't know. And I just got really, really shy all of a sudden. And I didn't have these words at the time, but I was just kind of scared shitless. And I was like, no, like hiding behind my mom's leg. And suddenly all I wanted to do was go home with her. And she made me stay. And I ended up having an awesome time. And I won some Matchbox cars, which were pretty awesome. But, besides the Matchbox cars, the biggest win was that I now had a new skill. I could now go to birthday parties without being terrified, right? Because the first time is always the hardest. It's like walking through a ring of fire, which is why the image here you see is fire. Like, why the hell would I want to walk into fire, right? But the first time is always the hardest. It's like making that scary phone call. Or you think about, if you've ever been to a brand new city and taken a bus, that's intimidating. It's always, for me, it's always intimidating to take some public transportation in a city I don't know. And so the first time, it's like, it takes this courage, it takes a lot of focus and attention and just like, getting my bearings. And then the second time, it's like, oh yeah, I know where I'm going. I can keep my eye out for those landmarks. And the third time, I can actually kind of like stare out the window and not even think about it too much, right? So the first time is always the hardest. And this is always an act. It's an action, and you're walking through that ring of fire, like I said. So it's making that scary phone call. It's announcing your new creation to the world, right? That you've never announced out loud or online or whatever. It's making the investment in a new coach or, a new venture to learn what, this new career you're going to take on, or that kind of thing. Or, going to another country to buy a house, or just all those like crazy things. And they could be huge things like that, right? Or they could be like walking into your boss's office to hand in your notice, huge courage zone thing there. Or they can just be those little things, like making the phone call, sending the email, pressing send is what I call it. Like the pressing send moments is actually, it's how you make things happen, and they're always so scary. So that's like pressing submit on the application form, or pressing talk on your phone to make the call, or pressing publish on the blog post you just wrote that was super exposing, that kind of thing. And this is the zone of feeling the fear and doing it anyway. And it's like that last 2% before the breakthrough, 2%. And it's the hardest. It's like giving birth. Whether you've given birth or women who've given birth, they often report that they want to give up. Like, no, I can't do it. Like just before the baby is born. It's that 2%, like that's the invisible force field, right? Like often it's just that 2%, and we don't know what that is, but it's because we're kind of, swirling around in one of those other zones. So the decision here is to run through the fire or run away from the fire, and kind of makes sense to run away from the fire. Why would I want to run toward fire? It could burn me. It's hot. It's not comfortable, right? But on the other side of the courage zone is where you step into your new reality. And really, it's just how you shape the course of your life. So how do you actually experience a breakthrough? There's 4 things, and you can do this right now. Maybe if you have a piece of paper, just feel into your own situation that has been on your mind. And number 1, identify the zone that you're in. Like, are you in your comfort zone? Are things just kind of like cruising along? Are you in the dissatisfaction zone where it feels kind of like maybe ruddy or stuck, something like that? Are you in the anticipation zone where you're, planning and making things, like making all your plans and getting things in order? Are you in the courage zone where you're scared shitless, but you're in hardcore action? So identify the zone that you're in. It's number 1. Number 2 is really recognize the opportunity that is in this zone. And number 3, make an intentional decision. So what are you going to do with that information now that you have it? And number 4, take aligned action. So let's just look really quick at what that means for these different zones. So if you are in the comfort zone, what's the opportunity in the comfort zone? Well, really, it's to enjoy it, right? Like this is a time of confidence, of mastery and ease. If you're in the comfort zone and like, let there not be judgment about that. Like, that's great. And and the decision here is like, how can I optimize and leverage being in this comfort zone so I can enjoy it and I can also leverage it? So it might be really just practicing the art of just being, to relax and enjoy as you acclimate to this new reality you're in. They say that life is a journey and we never arrive, right? We hear that all the time. You never arrive, it's a journey. But the comfort zone, it's as close as you get to arriving. So you might as well enjoy that. The other thing you could do, depending on what we're talking about here with your life, where you're in your comfort zone, you might also document your new wisdom while it's fresh. Maybe now you have something to teach or share about what you're mastering as you master it. And it might also be to celebrate, because if you're now comfortable with something that was once a dream and now that's your life, sometimes we don't even notice that happened, right? Because there's always something new. But really celebrate that. That's a decision you can make. So if you're in the dissatisfaction zone, what's the opportunity in the dissatisfaction zone? Well, really, I'm just giving you ideas, right? You might see some other opportunities for yourself, but the opportunity is that you can let go of the concept that this is a problem. Like, it is not a problem if you're in the dissatisfaction zone. You could instead recognize this as an invitation to explore a new reality for yourself. It's that healthy dissatisfaction. There's something else for you. That's kind of awesome. That's kind of exciting. So there's no need to force anything. Just explore, like, what else might be possible for you. So it's really an amazing opportunity to sink into dreaming, the magic of dreaming. Like, just what if this, what if that? Because everything beautiful in this life started as a dream, right? So that's pretty cool opportunity there. So your decision point here is to consider yourself stuck and wallow in the fact that you're stuck and life sucks. You could do that. Or you could start to imagine what else is there. Anticipation zone. So let's just look at the opportunity for you here. So the opportunity, one of the opportunities is to just get really real with yourself and get really honest with yourself about what your favorite form of mind trickery is. So is it confusion? Is it distraction? Is it idea orgasms? Is it, just freezing in place paralysis? What is it that is your form of mind trickery that keeps you sinking back from that courage zone, stepping back? And maybe you're just at the very early inner edges of the anticipation zone, and there's like nothing wrong with that, right? You're just like starting to actually like turn this possible what if dream into some plans. Like, that's awesome. So that's cool. So you can actually, that's an opportunity as well to actually map out where you're going to go. But be honest with yourself when you can catch yourself in that mind trickery. Where are you holding yourself back? So, one more thing about, there's a decision point here, right? Making an intentional decision. You can choose, if you're on that outer edge of your anticipation zone, you can choose to take the pressure off yourself, or you can move through it. And either one is valid, right? Like, you are allowed to take the pressure off of yourself. Like, that can be a good thing, and just trust and allow things to happen in divine timing, and just release the judgment around it, release the pressure, release the timeline that probably is that you're probably only imposing on yourself, right? You can do that for sure. Or you could also just be like, you know what? I am going to own this new reality, and I'm going to stand up tall and run through that fire, and I'm just going to go for it, right? So that's your decision. And when you're in the courage zone, oh my gosh, what an opportunity, right? Like, you are right at the edge of a whole new life. Like, it is so uncomfortable to be in that fear where you're just shaking in your boots. It feels like physically uncomfortable, at least for me. I don't know about you. I'm just like, like, it's like this, I don't know, like this feeling in my stomach, like, I can't even handle it. But there's an opportunity, a huge opportunity there. And so this is where you can just like summon the badass in you, right? And play to win versus playing to fall back on anticipation and, fall back into the planning and prove your old story to yourself about why you can't have what you say you want, which is a really common thing. And it just makes sense because, again, walking through fire is not an enjoyable thing. But if you can choose to play to win here, that's a huge opportunity. You can keep your eye on your vision. You can own it. You can use your physiology, like kind of a power pose or a power outfit, or, standing up really tall when you're on the phone, smile as you talk, channel your highest self, that part of you that just is a complete badass. Maybe it's you consider it your future self, who already has everything she's ever dreamed of, and just channel that and embody that part of you, and approach that ring of fire as they would. Or knowing the wisdom that that version of you has on the other side in that new reality, because that version of you already lives in that new reality. What would that version of you say? Like, it's like Red Rover almost, right? Like, come on, come on, come on in. You can, just run through it. You can do it. So the action, the aligned action and the decision here is to go for it or don't, right? And the action is, what does that look like? That's for you to define. Like, what is that action that will be where you are taking it from idea, from dream, from swirling around in your head to putting it in the real world? What is that action? Just define that action right now. And that is, that's your pathway through, right? So whatever zone you're in, make a powerful decision for yourself and take aligned action to support that decision. And that is how you move through these zones of expansion and into your new reality. So let's talk about, what does this really make possible for you? So first of all, just knowing this, right? Like, just knowing that this is how it works. Is there a little bit of relief there? I'm just curious, because for me, when all of this just sort of, it's actually woke me up at 3 a.m. one day, and I was like, oh my God, I couldn't go back to sleep. I had to write all this down. Like, it just clicked. It clicked in, and it's sort of like forehead slapping obvious, right? When you see it. But when you can see where you are, then you know what you need to do, or what you can choose to do. It's not even what you need to do, right? And what this makes possible is it's really like it becomes less burdensome to be where you are. The dissatisfaction zone is less burdensome because you know it's not permanent, and you recognize it's this opportunity into something greater. When you're in the anticipation zone and you're more focused on playing to win versus stuck in analysis paralysis, because you already know that fear is inevitably around the corner. Like, that's what's next, fear. Like, okay, cool. So that's what there is to deal with. So it can just kind of take the confusion out of it. So what happens is, as you start to move through these zones of expansion, what there is on the other side is a new reality, right? So see this, it's like, here's your current comfort zone. You move through the courage or the dissatisfaction zone, the anticipation zone, the courage zone, bing, you're in a new reality right here. And guess what it looks like? It's a new comfort zone. So yay, it's like, really, this is the part that's uncomfortable. This part right here, the dissatisfaction and the anticipation and the courage zone. But what's on the other side is a new comfort zone, just a new and expanded comfort zone that actually has some, more of the experiences that you want, like a new version of being alive. It's a brand new reality. And what happens is, as you start to move through that one, because inevitably you're going to be called into expansion again, as long as you're alive, you're a creature of expansion, you're going to be called to it again. So guess what? There's a new dissatisfaction zone, a new anticipation zone, a new courage zone to move through. But look how they get a little smaller, because what's also in your new reality, what's in your new comfort zone now, is actually the moving through of these stages. So then you start to get to the outside. Look, they're thinner. It's like, okay, your comfort zone starts becoming bigger. The other zones start to become smaller. You're building a muscle. You now have this, you now have a new skill, just like I now have a skill of going to birthday parties, thanks to Robert. You now have a new skill of breaking through into new realities and choosing what to do to bring yourself there. And so you start to master that. You develop breakthrough mastery. And then look at this. It's like, what does your overall life look like? Overall, it looks like a beautiful, lovely meadow with, of course, little like ripples to move through. It moves from a mountain to a ripple. And so this is when there's people in the world who have just done, experienced outrageous amounts of success, like say Tony Robbins or Oprah or something like that. It's like they've just done this. Like they've learned how to master moving through these zones, and they can just like snap their fingers, bust through these things. And this is what happens. You reinvent your reality. Your life starts to look like this. And always there's a new reality on the other edge for you. And so it's not bad news. It's just the mechanics. It's just the mechanics of breakthrough. So I want to talk about one other thing, and this is about the facing limitations really on the outside, because a lot of what we talked about just now, like that's really an inside thing, right? It's kind of like there's this new reality that you crave. There's something that you desire in your life. And why are you not having it yet? Or why are you feeling stuck? Or why does it feel like as soon as you get close, it just doesn't happen? Well, now you know, and now you have some new decisions you can make and some actions you can take to bring yourself there. But there are also, the truth just is, there are also outside external circumstances and environments that can hold us back as well, that create limitations. And so I want to talk about the blueprint of society. So society, we think of society sometimes as people, but what society really is it's like a common agreement of just what is so. It's like a common agreement about what is appropriate and what is possible and what is normal in the society that we live in. And so it's really powerful because it's almost invisible. Like it's the air that you breathe when you're not conscious that you're breathing. It's like, it's just surrounds us. And so even when you are somebody who you really, you think outside of the box, you are a person who, has ambitions, you're a go-getter, you're the person who, maybe people are like, wow, you think so differently, or like you always just go for it. And maybe you have what you value in life is a little different than what sort of the mainstream society values. But when you're breathing the air of mainstream society, I'm guessing you've experienced this. I sure have. It's like when you're surrounded by that, it's those doubts of the outside world start to creep into your own existence too. It like slows you down. It's like riding the brakes, or swimming upstream. You're going sure, the current's going against you and you're going the other way, and you can swim as hard as you want, but there is still the current that's going in the other way, right? So here's the deal. There are certain ingredients of society, and this is the reason it works that way. There are certain ingredients, and the quality of the ingredients determines the quality of the outcome. So before we talk about the ingredients of society, let's make this just super simple and talk about food, okay? So let's say you are going to make pasta. And Italian food often has very simple recipes, usually just like 4 ingredients, but it's the quality of the ingredients that completely determines this dish, right? So you could make pasta like this. That's, maybe just old stale noodles that have been in the pantry for a couple years, and, frozen meat and sauce, like tomato paste, just like slopped onto it. And like these could be the ingredients of your pasta, and your pasta will be like this. Let's just move away from that because that's gross. Or your pasta could be like this, and it's like maybe it's hand pressed, homemade noodles and fresh basil from the garden, and your grandma's tomato marinara sauce that's just completely infused with love. Like this pasta and this pasta are totally different, but they're the same exact ingredients, right? So it's the same thing with our society. There are four ingredients of society, and this is what they are. So number one, it's the things we learn. So in society, it's like, what is it that we're taught, whether we're in school, whether it's just sort of what's talked about on TV. It's just sort of the things that are passed down from generation to generation. For example, like how to make money. Like in mainstream society, we're taught the way that you make money is you go get a job and exchange your life force energy in exchange for a paycheck. That's just what is considered normal, right? Like, I don't know about you, but for me in high school, I definitely didn't learn about creating multiple income streams or, financial freedom. I learned how to take a bunch of student loans out and go to college to get a job to, pay debt forever, like that kind of thing. These are the things we learn as normal, right? The other ingredient of society is what we talk about. Like, what are the conversations that are just going on around you? Again, like what is normal, what is important, what is valued, like that kind of thing. The conversations that are going on that has an energy that affects us, whether we want it to or not. Also, thoughts, like what we think about. And that's other people's thoughts. It's our own thoughts. It's the thoughts that are just swirling around in the mass consciousness that wiggle their way into our minds. You know, it's sort of like the thoughts you're thinking when you don't think about it, when you're unconsciously just surrounded by quote unquote what is, right? That common agreement of what is, what type of thoughts does that generate in your own mind? And it's also, of course, the people that you're surrounded by. What is, you know, culturally appropriate? What do people value? Like all of that stuff. So the ingredients are what you learn, what you talk about, or what is talked about, what is thought, the thinking that goes on, and the people. And so the common agreement of what is affects you one way or another, whether you want it to or not, like we just talked about. It's like, is what most of mainstream society believes is important? Are those values aligned with your values? Is this dream that you have in your heart, that's the new reality that you're wanting to create, is that something that the rest of the world around you believes is possible? So, you know, what if you want something else? Like, what if you want something else other than what mainstream society values? This sort of like overwork, overstress, you know, give your life force energy away to climb the social ladder. Like, what if there's something else that you desire? What if your values are slightly different? We like to say in else society, what's your else? You know, like, what is your else? What do you want? And so when you know, this is the secret to these external limitations, right? When you know that the common agreement of what is affects you, when you know those 4 ingredients affect you, you get to choose to replace the ingredients. You know, who are you intentionally learning from? What classes are you taking? What, you know, like, are you learning what you need to learn to take you to where you want to go? What conversations are you giving your energy to? What talk are you giving your energy to? What thoughts do you choose to adopt and allow to grow within you? Who are you hanging out with? Like, we know that the people who are around, it definitely affects our consciousness, right? So this is, again, a place of power for you. You get to choose the ingredients that you allow into your life. So we can't snap our fingers and make mainstream society just, you know, completely change its ways. If you're listening to this, if you're part of Goddess Fest, you're most likely someone who, like, the rest of the world just hasn't caught up with you yet, right? Like, you see more of what's possible. Like, you think beyond sort of this mainstream status quo way of being. So we talked about that the influence of society affects your life whether you want it to or not. It's the path of least resistance. It's the direction the current is flowing in. And so it's like the tide that lifts you naturally. And so intentionally choosing the current that you want to be carried with is really important. And how do you do that? How do you change the common agreement of what is? You simply change the ingredients that you're surrounding yourself with. We create our own society. We create a society that has a different version of what is true, what is real, what is possible. So when mainstream society is like, yeah, that just doesn't work that way, or that's just not possible, we just go on doing it, right? And that's actually exactly why else society exists, and it's why else society is designed how it is. I'll tell you about that just really briefly. So else society contains 4 new ingredients, right? Else learn, it's what we learn. Else learn is specifically around creative income streams and escape routes that they don't teach you in school, because, you know, no matter how motivated you are to live full out, the practicality is that money can either keep you trapped or set you free. Like, so many people say it's the money that's you know, the feels like the biggest block between where they are and where they want to be. And there's some truth in that. Like, we need to have the money handled. And so Else Learn is all about getting the money handled so that you can actually get to the life that you're meant for. And Else Talk is conversations with visionaries that not only inspire, but really open up new neural pathways and new ways of thinking so that new possibilities become available and new ideas are generated that otherwise may not have shown up at all. So that's what we talk about. else think is, it's like, the thoughts that are wiggling around in mainstream society, like they just can kind of affect your thinking. Else think is like little whispers in your ear, little whispers of truth to keep you on your true path to freedom, no matter what's going on around you in the rest of the world. So we send these messages right to your smartphone every day. And often people say that these else thinks have a funny way of being exactly what they needed to hear when they needed to hear it. That's just an element of magic, right? But it's just those little thoughts that you receive on a daily basis to remind you who you really are, what's really true, what's really up, right? And then of course, else people, because it goes without saying that it's just essential to be around people who are also fiercely dedicated to full aliveness and nothing less. So else people are just an amazing community of folks who not only get you, but who go for it alongside you. So because you're part of Goddess Fest, I want to extend a little invitation to you. So Else Society, our annual membership, it opens only a couple times a year for public enrollment. But because you're here, part of Goddess Fest, I'd love to invite you in anyway. We'll just crack that little door open for you. And this is your secret link. It's elsesociety.com/goddess invite. So if you want to learn more about what it means to be a part of Else Society, what it, more about what you can expect from Else Learn, Else Talk, Else Think, Else People, and this really cool bonus that you can see right here that's just basically a roadmap to intentionally designing your life step by step so you know exactly what to do every day to bring you to where you want to be. Anyway, you can learn more all about that at elsesociety.com/goddess invite, and we will crack that door open for you for just a couple days. So if you think you might want to check it out, go ahead and do that sooner than later. So thank you so much for joining me for the Mechanics of Breakthrough. I hope it was really helpful for you. I hope that you see some openings into the new reality that you know is yours and are choosing to claim. And thank you so much, Rae, for inviting me to be a part of Goddess Fest. I think what you have created is wonderful. And I will send you all virtual high fives until we speak next time. Take care.